Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Bookum Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley, and this is a special episode of Creators Talk Podcast, a podcast for book conversations with your favorite bookish content creators. This episode is brought to you by Bookum, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookumapp.com. Make sure to like and subscribe to our show. My guest today, is the dynamic duo behind the She Well Read podcast. She Well Read is an award-winning, bite-sized podcast for all types of readers. They are community builders, they are dedicated readers, conversationalists, and important voices in the book space. Alana and Samra, welcome to the Creators Talk podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
It's really cool. And as you all were saying, it's really nice to see podcasters on the other side of things, kind of hear how you all see the world and kind of have those conversations where you get to be the guest on the show. So I really do appreciate you all for stopping by. I would love to kind of start with the current day. You all are about to launch your next season of She Well Read. What will be different about this season versus previous seasons you all have done for the podcast?
That's a good one. Can we curse on here or no?
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Okay. Well, the first thing that came to mind was we have our shit together a little more than last time. I think we've said this like every season, it just gets better and better. But with that, it also gets like more work. But it's all like good things. It's all good progress. I think one of the biggest changes, now that I think about it also, is that we're not doing video this season.
Okay.
Our studio that we used to record at, they're not doing podcasts anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we found that out like a month ago and we were like, oh. And so we were like, instead of trying to stress about how we're going to do it now, we were like, we're just going to go back to our roots and just do straight audio and one day come back to the video eventually. So that is one change for this year that I can think of.
So how was the editing process for that? Were you all doing the editing with the video, or were they sending you clips after you finished the show?
Yeah, so he would send us, like the studio owner, who we're really great friends with. Hi, Micah, if you're watching. But he would send us like what was it? WeTransfer, and so it'd be like the raw like video files, and then I could like splice and dice behind the scenes for whatever we needed to do with it.
Yeah, you all have like really great chemistry on the mic. What kind of shaped you all's relationship, and how do you all kind of get that nice balance when you all are doing your conversation?
I feel like it's definitely the fact that we're real friends in real life. She and me have been through so much together, and we met, I think we were like 18 when we met, and we've been friends ever since. We're like 26, 27 now. So we've just like, that's such a time in your life when things change a lot, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and so we've just seen each other at our like worst and our best to the point where we can be super transparent, I think.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Take us a little bit down like the memory lane. What were those early days of She Well Read? What were some of those more memorable challenges or breakthroughs that stand out to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I guess like we started it the summer after we graduated college, just because we had gotten together and we were like, we're bored. But also, well, because like in college, you have all these things you're involved in, like outside of school. And like, I mean, even like not just college, just school in general, you're always like involved in some organization or some group or something. And then when you graduate college or like any like higher education degree, it's like, okay, now what besides a 9 to 5? And so we had talked about, well, Samra was really the one who was like, I'm thinking about starting a book club. Like, I really want to get back into reading. I used to love reading. And I was like, oh my gosh, I used to love reading too. And, we were in college, so like didn't really have much time for that. And so that's kind of how this came to be, because I was listening to podcasts pretty heavily at the time. And I was like, Samra, what if we turned it into a podcast? Like, that sounds kind of fun, just like random. And she was like, I'm down. And then the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. Did you all trade books at all before the podcast or when you're doing books? I know you said not as much in college just because college had like textbooks and all that type of stuff, but were you all
Right.
still passing books and ideas around in that sense?
Mm, I would say, like, in the sense of how we view reading, yes. Which I think kind of to explain that more, because I know people were like, what do you mean? We're big advocates of like read anything. So like it's not just about reading books, like reading an article, reading a magazine, like reading a Twitter thread. Like it all counts at the end of the day. It's all reading and you're getting something out of it. So in that aspect, yes, but like a physical novel, not so much. I feel like whenever I had downtime, I would read like stuff that I'd already read, like young adult books that I'd already read before that were like comfort reads almost, at least for me. I don't know about you, Samra.
Yeah, I feel like I was not reading at all. Like hard stop. Like I was not reading, period. So there was nothing, I mean, unless it was like, you know, answers to a test, like study stuff, because we were both business majors.
Oh, cool.
There, yeah, so I do feel like we like maybe like traded textbooks maybe once or twice, but um yeah, but yeah, no books. Like I was not, that's actually why I wanted to get back into reading, honestly, is because I hadn't like opened a book for fun in so long. I'd just been chronically online for the past 5 years and was like, oh my gosh, I'm depressed.
Talk to me about being business majors and how that kind of played into your podcast as well.
Oh my gosh, it helps so much. Like, especially when it comes to like the admin stuff. Like we both took, Simmer, was it Business 350? It was like a communications class for business majors. And like at first we were like, this is dumb. But then like the amount of like how we use it when we're like writing professional emails and like things like that, it really shaped a lot of our business decisions and like what we do behind the scenes. And like I have a background in accounting, so like that helps when it comes to like the finance side of things and like bookkeeping and stuff like that. So definitely helps. And then Samra did like marketing, so like obviously that helps when it comes to social media and advertising and stuff like that.
Yeah. Walk me through creating the podcast. Like, how does the show get produced? How do you all choose what actually goes into an episode? Is it just you two, or do you have a size of the team, etc.?
Nope, it's just the two of us.
Yes. Although we have talked about like, I know I'm always like, we should get an intern. But it hasn't panned out so far. It's like we have all these ideas and we're like, ultimately we're just trying to like plan content for the next month. And so things get lost in the sauce. But yeah, honestly, I've just literally lost my train of thought. I'm speaking
I
about.
watched it happen.
It happens.
That's part of the like being best friends part. Like earlier when we were doing the sound check and I saw her, I already knew like something was up.
Yeah.
And she
That
does the same
chemistry.
to me.
That's
Yep.
good. I want to talk about the seasonality, right? So you all choose to do your podcast in seasons. Talk to us about that approach versus, I know we're kind of talking about it before, but versus like a weekly or even daily approach. Why'd you go with the season?
Yeah, so I mean, we're both working 9 to 5, so like realistically speaking, podcasting is a lot of work, and I think that's something that people don't understand until they get in it. They're like, "Oh, it's just this easy thing," where it's like, no, there's like 50 million steps after you're like finished hitting the record button that you have to do behind the scenes. Like you have to edit it and then get clips for socials and then do descriptions, figure out a title, the SEO of it all. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So that's why we took like the seasonal approach. And because we call ourselves a bite-sized book club podcast, it's more conducive to our adulting lifestyle too, where we can, kind of condense it down, and each episode is one chapter rather than trying to do one episode being one book. It's just
Yeah.
unrealistic to our lifestyles. And we think a lot of people, or now we found out, a lot of people are the same way, where the approach that we take to it is way more manageable than the stuff you see on Book Talk, where they're like, look at the 20 books I read this month. It's like, that's great, but not all of us can do that.
Yeah. We talk about that too at Bookum. It's the idea of book clubs can be seasonal, they can be short bursts, they can be different. How you even talk about take a book and talk about it for a whole season. I think the idea of always, hey, we're reading this book this month and you just roll them out each month is not always realistic, but the core of it is we are gathering around story, we're gathering around community. So whether we read the book in 2 months, but we go through it deeper, honestly, I'm cool with that because I enjoy reading and dissecting the book. Or if you want to be in a group that can read really fast and you all are committed to that, then that's fun too. But I do appreciate how you all think about it because it gives a book sometimes what it needs. Sometimes a book does need to be dissected in a thousand different ways. I don't know if you could just read, let's say, a James Baldwin book, right? And just 1 month and be like, we're going on to the next thing, right? Like sometimes those books need depth. And I think you all were reading, was it Jeanette McCurdy's book, right? Last season.
Oof.
Talk to us a little bit about that. And what was the decision to make that the book of the season?
Well, so one thing that we switched from the first season we did pick the first, or maybe the first 2 books we picked. But after that, we opened it up to our audience. So they're the ones that actually chose that one. And, it was something that was definitely in my TBR, but I, can't imagine reading that book in one sitting or even 2 sittings. The fact that we split it up and dissected it over a few months was really, I think, conducive to the story because it allowed us to really get into the nitty-gritty. And there are so many details about her life that she tells us, and it's over the course of so many years that I really think it would allow us to give her space to really not that she's in the room with us, but we got to really pay attention to Jeanette at this age and then what her struggle was in that moment. And that helped us, I think, better understand the later chapters and really get the best reading experience out of it that we could. Because I feel that when you're reading on your own, sometimes you just lose interest or one chapter just really messes you up and you're like, I'm traumatized. I'm not going to go back to that for the next who knows how long, until I'm in a mood where I can actually deal with this. So holding Alana's hand and walking through it with our audience was really probably the best way to read that book. It's very dark.
Yeah, it's really heavy. Especially as 2 people who we talk about mental health on our show all the time in our own personal mental health journeys and struggles. So it's almost like it's triggering too as we're reading through this because it's reminding us of things that are similar things that we've dealt with. Especially Jeanette's big thing was she had mommy issues and I've got mommy issues too. So it was that thing of, having someone else there being like, I get it too. And then having our community be like, oh, but let us tell you also, you let me checkmate you really quick. So it's almost like that communal healing also, which is something really cool that I love about our show.
Yeah, I love that you all talk about community a lot because that's one of the things we always think about, and how do we engage community, build community, talk about it. You all do something unique. You call your community the She Well Baddies. So I want to know what kind
Well-read
of
baddies.
Well-read, my fault, apologies. Talk to us about what kind of sparked that name and how it even stuck, because names can sometimes change.
That's actually so funny because we struggled so hard trying to find a name for so long. I couldn't even tell you the moment when that one stuck. Samara, do you remember?
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely around the Megan Thee Stallion Hot Girl
Oh,
Summer era. Oh, I
right.
think it was we won this competition randomly.
Yes. Okay.
It was like a Twitter thing, and I think Megan had just released a song with Cardi B,
WAP.
WAP.
Mm-hmm.
So random. Which we love that song. Not to say random, like I don't like the song, but just random because Alana entered this on Twitter and they were doing some sort of like giveaway of like $500 and we hadn't established our LLC at that point. So when Alana won, she was like, I want this to be for She Will Read. Like they just gave us the money to start our business. And I think she had tweeted something like, we're gonna use this money for
Mm-hmm.
this business. And Cardi was like, bet, like, here you go. And she sent it to her via Cash App. So it's just like it appeared. And so I think it was something to do with that. It was like we were like, oh, we're gonna dedicate this name to like because of Megan and Cardi and
Yup.
so, but we had it had been seasons of us asking the audience, like, please help us with a name. Like we can't figure out a way to make She Will Read into an audience name. Like we just couldn't figure it out. So it's just one of those things that it probably will stick forever just because of how iconic that like it's crazy. We forgot.
Yeah, when I was like, oh shit, that is how that happened. Because we're always like, Megan and Cardi are on our board of directors, like just because they gave us that money at that point. They're part of the Well Read Baddie
They're
crew
invested.
too. Yeah, they're literally invested. So,
That's
yep.
a really cool story. But speaking of that, like, how does music play? How does music play into your podcast at all? Do you make playlists or just anything that hypes you up before you go into doing a podcast?
We need to bring the playlist back.
We do need to bring the playlist back. We did it like season one, and then we didn't do it again.
Oh, okay,
Because again,
a
there's
lot of
so many
work.
moving pieces. Yeah, where it's like just things like that, just random stuff fall through the crack. Like there was something we talked about yesterday. We were like, oh yeah, we did say we wanted to do that. Like, why did we ever like follow through with that? But it's because of the laundry list things that we have to do. Um, I'd say my prep for getting ready to record sometimes is a glass of wine, which is always fun. Like a snack. I'll listen to some hype music, one of my playlists, or honestly, like just now I was listening to an audiobook, so kind of gets me in
Perfect.
the mood.
That's good. What kind of wine? Red wine, white wine?
I'm a white wine girly.
There we go. There we go. And speaking of that, just like when we talk a little bit about community, how do you think about building community? Because even like those small things matter, right? Just like what you drink and what you talk about and how you connect. So how do you all think about community and engaging with your audience?
That's a really good point. I do feel like we have to curate more than just books. Like we're curating the vibes of
Right.
like, you know. So like, we have this thing called coffee break. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that is kind of our way of bringing the vibes into the podcast because at the end of the day, you're here for the book, but you do, like you said, like the community is the aspect that you're staying for. So having that coffee break where we're drinking, whatever it is, it's not just coffee, but it can be tea, it can be wine. It's not exclusive. But just like something to just like make you remember, I guess, what matters. I feel like that helps bring everything in. Like, okay, like we're breaking bread almost. Like the damn Last Supper. Like we're about to get into it. And I don't want to be thirsty. Like I want to have everything right, like the vibe, like the so I think that's what coffee break is for. We'll talk about really anything under the sun, but it's definitely something that feels like what our audience wants to talk about, what wants to hear, like whatever it is. It might be pop culture or it might be music. It might be like an album we're really listening to at that time. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully I answered the question.
No, that's good. Well, I think podcasts are so powerful because you're spending that time with somebody. It's like you could be driving, working out, eating. When you have that podcast, it's the audio. You're right there with a friend. You build these bonds with people even more so than I could go watch a TikTok, for example, watch it for 30 seconds. It's not the same as when I turn on a podcast. I can see like someone could be my best friend almost. Like if I seen a random podcaster that I've known, I'd be like, "How's it going? Nice to meet you." Like I feel like I've met you a bunch of times. So I do think when it comes to podcasts, there is a community element that's built that's even more unique because of the time spent and the relationship from listening to the audio with you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it also helps that our coffee breaks are like kind of at the beginning of the episode. So back to Sam's reference of breaking bread, it's like
Yeah.
right at the jump. So it kind of like almost like if you were to go to a like real life book club at the beginning, like you don't just go straight into it. Like you're like, oh, what'd you do today? Like, what's the newest whatever? And so that's kind of like what our coffee break is for us in our community.
Yeah, talk to me about outside of social media. How do you engage with your community? Do you all do any offline events or like in-person events?
We do
So that's
try to get into the community, but
yeah.
something we've been exploring more is like, should we do? We've been discussing an in-person book club and throwing ideas around for that. So I do think it's something we want to invest in more heavily going forward. But yeah, I think we've really been more focused on the virtual book club aspect for the past few seasons.
Yeah, just because it's kind of like the premise of the whole show. Like you listen to the show and you're able to listen to it from anywhere, so you're able to be a part of the book club from anywhere. But I mean, even that part has been difficult because, but a light bulb that went off when I was talking to one of my podcast mentors is like, you have a book club podcast. Most people who read books more than likely are introverts, so it's going to be harder for you to kind of like get them on a call or like more of those like in-person type things or even virtual like a Zoom type thing, which honestly did help because we were like we have these people who like message us and whatever, but like why aren't they showing up? And it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense actually. But I think with the rise of like TikTok and things like that, I think that's going to change too. So
Yeah, that's good. And then when it comes to merchandise, how do you think about merchandise and building engagement with your book club through book merch?
That's also a great question.
I was about to say she's a merch girl, so I'm letting her take over.
So, I definitely want to get more, and I just feel like it's so great for branding to have like all this different fun merch. And so it's been in my head for a while. Getting it executed is sometimes like kind of hard. Our first merch drop was a few seasons ago, but it was just a t-shirt. And so we've got something in the works now, but at this point, it's just like, I don't know. It's like I almost like don't want to say too much because we stay being like, "Hey, we're gonna do this," and then like it's 6 months later, and where's the merch? So at this point,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's coming. But yeah, I do think that having little like bookmarks, different things, random things can all like go into the community building and branding and that side of things. So it's something I love. It's just like it kind of can be problematic to who do you go through and like the logistics of it all.
Yeah. Talk to us about the book you all chose for this season and what people can kind of expect for this season coming up.
Yeah, so I mean, this week's actually a pretty big week because we announced on our Instagram and TikTok when the season's starting, which is June 5th. We say Well Read Wednesdays, so we always start on a Wednesday and every episode comes out on Wednesday. And then our community chose it's this book called Black Girl IRL: Life Between the Mess and the Magic. And it's actually, I too voted for this book too, so I was extra happy that it got chosen. Um, And it's really about just your regular average Black girl, like not the one who's like, like doing all these hobbies and doing these things, but like you go to work, you come home, and you live like a quote unquote basic life, and how they are still important too and have meaning and value and all of those types of things. And like just the pressure of society of like as Black women, like for us to do all of these big and amazing things, but like just because you don't doesn't mean you're a failure. I think that's kind of the premise of the whole book.
Yeah, that's good. I definitely will listen in and throughout the season just to hear and just and to support, of course. How do you get engaged? How do you gauge success is for you all when it comes to hosting a podcast? Is it downloads, etc., listeners, people's feedback? What do you consider success?
To me is when we get those random DMs or emails about how something we said or have done for the show or on the show has literally changed somebody's life, or like how they feel seen, or that we are their like book besties virtually, even though they've never met us before. Because I think that's the whole mission of our show, is just to build. I know we've talked about it 50 million times at this point, but it's true, like to build that community, and just having something where it's like I feel seen and we're all seen, and like you are not alone, truly we're all living the same lives. um so to me, that's when I feel the most successful, is when we get that type of feedback. What about you, Sams?
No, I agree. I definitely think it's not the statistics or what is the number? Analytics.
Downloads, yeah.
It's not the download. It's not any numerical number. It's definitely like real life, real life people interacting and being like, "Hey, how's your podcast going?" And I'm like, "Oh, you care about my podcast. Like, thank you. That's really sweet." So, that's the stuff that actually like really hits me.
Yeah.
Now, do we like our download numbers? Yes, they do. They also do make us happy. So go listen to the show.
Shameless plug.
That's great. Let's get into some reading before we head to the finish. Talk to me about the book you're reading. What's the last book you read, the book you're reading now, and what you're going to read next?
Ooh, I was actually just thinking about this. Okay, so I just finished reading The 7 Year Slip. I'm like staring at it by Ashley Poston. I've been really into romances lately and spicy books. I don't know what's happening. But that one was really good. What I'm currently listening to that I just started was The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. And what I plan to read next is The Proposal by Jasmine Gilroy. I'm in a huge romance kick, and also reading books where it's like I know like The 7 Year Slip and Neighbor Favorite, they're not new,
No.
but I feel like I'm never, and I feel like Sammer too. We're never like when everybody's reading it, we're reading it too. It's like, nah, we're probably gonna read it like a year or two after it comes out, maybe. Now, okay, unless it's like Kennedy Ryan or Tia Williams, then everything gets on hold, and I'm dropping everything and I'm gonna read whatever that is. But
Wait, what did you think about her last book? What's it called? A Love Song for Ricky Wild.
oh, I listened to it and it was so good. I love it. I loved it. I loved that, and I loved Kennedy Ryan's last book, This Could Be Us. Sammer knows I'm obsessed. Um,
She
that
put
was
me on.
I
She put
did.
me on the Kennedy Ryan. That's
I
true.
did. But yeah. And I bought during Independent Bookstore weekend, I bought Funny Story by Emily Henry, just because I've never read anything Emily Henry, and I know everybody loves Emily Henry, and so everybody's been saying like this one's her best work, and so I was
Oh
like,
wow,
all right, let's do it.
that's good. And then Samara, did you have anything that you've been reading lately?
I feel like I've been in a reading slump. I had an experience with crying in H Mart. It's a memoir by Michelle Zauner. And I've been loving it, but like it's just really sad. And so I've been on a hiatus. And I think whenever I read something that I get down on myself because I'm like, oh, I need to be reading that. Um, but besides that, I was like, okay, let me start something else just so that I like can get back into this. So I just started what is that? It's literally right over there. This James Baldwin book that I've never read. It's literally sitting right there. Oh my God. Hello?
I'm just saying, you want to go get
I,
it?
I mean, Baldwin's written a lot of books, so I can't even help you with this one.
Wait, let me go run and get it.
I was like, because now I'm on the edge of my seat. I want to know what it is.
That was a good
I
book in the
haven't.
world.
I was about to say.
That's so funny. Okay, it's called Giovanni's Room.
Oh yeah, of course. Gotcha. No, that's good. Let's get into some rapid fire questions. What's an important book that no one is reading or talking about lately? Like it's not on social media, but you're like, you need to read this book.
Oh,
That's hard.
that's a really good question.
And I'm like staring at my bookshelf and I'm like, okay, what's like not super popular? Okay, well, I'm gonna shameless plug it again because I mean it was when it was out, it was really talked about, but I mean it's not really talked about anymore. More Than Enough by Elaine Welteroth. We covered that in the second season of our show.
Cool.
And that one, it was life changing for me. I saw myself in Elaine. It got me into reading memoirs. It's just a really good, wholesome book, especially if you're like a young adult in like your early to mid 20s or just in your 20s in general. Um, Very relatable story, really well written. And also, she's an amazing person too to like add to it. And it's kind of that fun thing where it's like, you like read the book and then it's like, oh yeah, this is a real person. I can like go follow them and like keep up with what they're doing now. So yeah, I know it's not an underrated book, but I still think more people should know about it and
Great
check
choice.
it out.
For sure. Samara, did you have anything there too?
No, I mean, I don't know. That's a really hard question.
What about your Julia Fox book?
Down the drain. Honestly, yeah, I would definitely. I feel like it's been talked about, maybe not as much anymore technically, but yeah, I feel like a lot of these books that I like are kind of randomly talked about. So I'm like, I don't know. But Down the Drain was good. It was a really good one.
Or even Old Enough. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. There's this book I'm reading now. Well, I'm like listening to the audiobook, but it's called I think it's called The Science of Growing Rich. It's really old and I think it's from like the 1910s or something.
Oh, wow.
And I can't think of the author, but it's like definitely it's a little outdated, but it's been really kind of life-changing for me so far. I'm excited to finish it.
Very nice. Let's go to what's a podcast you've been listening to lately?
Ooh, I listen to so many. I'm trying to think. Well, we both love Poor Minds, with Lex and Drea. Great show. One that I kind of started like at the end of the year and like love and binge now is Jokes on You podcast, which is also two ladies in Atlanta, Mel and Tally. I love them. I feel like we're besties. So yeah, those are two like always on. I mean, there's many more, but like those are the top two that I would say in my head right now. Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to think too because I haven't been listening to podcasts. I've been in like a crazy place, guys. What the heck? Like, okay, wait a minute.
I mean, it's season prep time, so like, I feel
True.
you.
I know. I'm just like, damn, because she's been recommending jokes on you for a while, and I just need to like just do it.
Yeah, didn't I like send it to you the other week, and you were like, "You've already told me this. I don't know how many times."
Right, but why didn't I listen to it? Like,
Yeah,
hello.
Life's been lifing. That too.
when it gets, yeah, you guys throw on the podcast at that point. When life's getting real busy, podcast, put it in when you're working out or something or driving.
Yeah, pretty much.
The question I always end with this podcast, it's a two-sided question, but first one is, what would you like to see more of in the book space?
That's a great question.
I feel like this is like, I'm not gonna say basic because it's real, but more diversity in the book space. More putting your money where your mouth is when you talk about diversity in the book space also. And not it just being a one-time thing, kind of like how we've seen, you know, the black squares, or people like to call it, fade away when it comes to these companies, where it's like, because it was popular, like, of course, oh yeah, but then like now that it's not quote unquote popular, it's like, okay, but this is still our everyday lives. And so yeah, definitely more supporting diversity in the book space.
Yeah, I have to echo that.
And on the other side, what would you like to see less of in the book space?
Oh my gosh, stop being hard on yourself when it comes to reading. Like, you can DNF that book and life will keep going. Because I've seen so
Wow.
many not podcasts. I've seen so many TikToks about that recently. Like, people literally stressing out because like they're not liking a book. It's like, okay, put it down. That's all right. It's like a show. If you don't like a show, stop watching it. Go watch something else.
I think it's
So,
those challenges be getting people. It's they want to hit a certain number of books per year and all that. But there's a level. What you we've said it throughout this podcast, but I mean, yeah, throughout this podcast, even with your podcast, it's the enjoyment of books. It's the let's spend time and read this book for a long period of time and really enjoy and dissect it.
right, because if you think about it, the longer you're like procrastinating on it, it's like the longer you're prolonging yourself from actually maybe getting a book finished to like put it on your list or whatever, or you risk the burnout of reading also, which is a real thing.
Yeah, that's very
So I
true.
feel like there's more consequences. So
Well, Alana and Samra, thank you for being on the podcast. Let us know how we can support or anything that's coming up, obviously this season, but yeah, let us know where we can support.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
yes, thank you so much for having us. I was supposed to say, Sam, we're getting, I'm like the rapid fire like person where it's like tell you how to find us. Okay, we are everywhere at She Well Read on all the handles, on all the things, on all the social media. We are She Well Read. New season comes out Wednesday, June 5th. Very excited about it. This season is running till about September, so it's a long one, but I think it's gonna be really good. Very excited to get into that. Um, the merch is coming, and not just we're saying it's coming, it's really coming. We're really close. We can taste it. Merch is coming. And yeah, just following us and staying tuned into what we got going on.
Yep. Well, congratulations and thank you again for being on the podcast. Truly appreciate it. And thank you both.
Of course. Thanks for having us.